Good afternoon. I'm Nat Wood. We're back at 59th Street, so we're a little discombobulated, but it's good to be home. I want to read you the profile of my next guest. You know both of his brothers if you're anywhere from New York. And we had him on as a guest before, and I did not realize how extraordinary, and I truly mean this, extraordinary a talent he was. So we brought him back to show you some of his stuff. Let me read you his profile. And again, you know I'm blind if you've ever watched this show, so here it goes. As an adolescent, I explored photography, capturing street scenes and the activities of everyday people. Fashion photography became a passion. I photographed black women and black men. I documented pivotal moments from the 1960s of artists who became iconic in the music industry. Today, as a photographer, I specialize in photographing jazz musicians, singers, artists, and performers. In addition, I have begun writing about these extraordinary individuals. My photographic career began as an adolescent when I was giving a POP, that's print out photography kit, for Christmas. Fascinated by the images I was able to create, my interest in photography grew and continues to this day. Now dig this. My early years as a photographer were mentored by my uncle, Hamilton Lionel Maloney. That's a good name. Who was himself a serious advanced amateur photographer, and my older brother, the internationally known Kwame Brathwaite. That's a clue. Along the way, there have been numerous distinguished photographers who have served as influences. In addition to the late Hamilton Lionel Maloney, Ray Francis, Lou Draper, Art Kane, and more recently Dallas Logan, Richard Condi, and J.T. Chandler. I have been fortunate to know these great photographers as I developed my own style. I can recall the excitement I had when I got my first 35mm camera, a little Yashiki rangefinder camera purchased at the Alexander's department store in the South Bronx. So you know this brother goes a long way back. I was so very proud to be able to take pictures of friends with such a fine camera, one that was so much more advanced than my uncle's Voigtlander folding camera. So he had moved a little past ahead of his uncle in equipment anyway. Another fond memory was my first dark room, which I set up in the basement of our home. It was exciting and challenging to see those first images. It was a joy I'll never forget. My earliest published photo was included in the Photography Annual 1970, and I was included in the Black Photographers Annual, that's Volume 3, and in Black Enterprise and Essence magazines. I have participated in numerous photo shows and is constantly working on multiple themes for future shows. My photographic achievements include Popular Photography Annual 1970, the Black Photographer Volume 3, Essence Magazine, and Black Enterprise. We have a book, excuse me while I kiss the sky, I guess you're... we have Rebirth, the Harlem Renaissance, Old Harlem, New Harlem, Images of Transformation, Vision, Culture, Creativity, February 24th, 2013. My recent shows include Diaspora, January 14th, 2011, Amazing Grace, February 2012 to March 31st, 2012, Color in Culture, February 21st, 2012 through April 6, 2012, Rebirth, that's February 26, 2012 through May 20, 2012, Old Harlem, New Harlem, Images of Transformation. If you didn't get the clue when I said Kwame Brathwaite, let me tell you that my secret guest is John Brathwaite, the incomparable John Brathwaite, and he's going to show us some of his photography. Just as he was inspired by mentors who came before him, including his family, hopefully we will inspire some of the people out there, the young people out there, to seek their dreams and go for it, because if you seek your dreams and stay focused, extraordinary things can happen. If those guys in the back are ready, they can roll my opening, and when we come back, John Brathwaite. into the fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy. We're back. For those of you watching who just moved to New York from Appalachia and don't know the name Brathwaite, we just had a tribute to one of the most extraordinary activists of our time, Pan-African activist and artist of our time, his older brother, Alambe Brathwaite. And a couple of weeks ago, we did a show with John Brathwaite and his brother Kwame, who is also an extraordinary artist. His work is displayed at the Schomburg on 125th Street, 135th Street. I'm losing my 25th. On 135th Street. And in closing the show, John showed me some of his work, and it is so exquisite, you know. Now, many of you know that I'm a videographer and a pretty good photographer. When I saw this guy's work, it was like, you know, you're just on some other level. So we're going to take a look at his work. We're going to talk to him. We're going to get some inspiration from him. I'm going to pick his brain and steal whatever I can, you know, and pass it along to you. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much, brother, for coming back here and being a part of this show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh man, you know, that was easy. That was easy. Dark rooms. You like really old school dark rooms in Alexandria.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, after you did your picture, you had to process them, and you had a dark room because you couldn't go to the department store all the time to pay all that money, and plus you had more control. So it was great to have a dark room to realize the images that were done by you. And I was fortunate to have live in a house that had a basement that I had access to with running water. So it was easy to set up an enlarger on top of my mother's washing machine and get the trays out on the table and start processing. It was just an amazing, magical thing because you just, you know, you're in the dark, you try this and that, and next thing you know, you're slipping into development, and woo, there's a picture. And then the stop bath and the hypo and all the other stuff you had to do with it. But it was just an amazing challenge and exciting, and you felt like you was doing some kind of alchemy. So this is great stuff, you know, and just enjoyable, and it's amazing. I look back on it. I'd be in the dark until 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, just playing with pictures, and just enjoying it, just quietly. And oh, one other thing, I had an old radio in there, so I had music, I had photography. What else do you want? I had everything.
You guys are like really like deep. For those of you who watch this show like a lot, you know that we're always talking about bringing art back into the school, about cultivating art. And I have a brother here who grew up in a time where art was not just important, it was fundamental to the education of black people. My learning in photography came at the New Jack section of it, just like my music. You know, I played digital pianos and digital single lens reflex cameras. You know, and here you have a brother who was cultivated in a time when some of the most extraordinary artists of all time. Whoa. Anyway, here you have a brother who was cultivated in a time when some of the most extraordinary artists in the world lived, and they performed on classic equipment. You know, he's talking about a dark room. Jazz musicians played grand pianos and acoustic pianos. They didn't play synthesizers. As a result, they really blossomed into extraordinary people.
That's true.
Tell us about some of the people you grew up with artistically. You mentioned your music.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, your love of music.
Right.
When did you get into loving jazz? How are you?
Well, since my brothers Ilomba and Kwame are a little older than I am, they were teenagers when I was just sort of coming into my teens. They were the hip guys I knew,
Right.
and
right.
so
Nice.
younger brother, I
Nice.
wanted to do what they did,
Nice.
and they liked jazz, and they would bring these jazz records home. And I had another friend, Dr. Henry Miller now, who we used to go to his house, and his father had an old console record player, big things with a huge speaker, and he had these monaural jazz records, and we listened. And I never forget, we had Way Out West, Sonny Rollins, and some real classic stuff, you know. Nat King Cole's Love is the Thing. We'd sit there and just play all this music and try to be cool.
Right.
Also, back in that time, my oldest brother, Lumbe, he took me to Birdland. When I was 15, I got a chance to go to Birdland.
Wow.
And I remember going to the Village Vanguard. I remember Miles Davis was opening that day. Back in that time, the acts would open on Sunday, like
What
Sunday
years
afternoon.
are we talking?
Ooh, middle. I got out of high school 58 to 65, and that's something
Wow,
that
wow,
and what happened
wow.
would
So the
back
music
then,
was just starting to change. You were just coming off of the Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis era. Not quite into the Bitches Brew era, but
way before Bitches Brew.
But certainly into the coming of people like what's his name, Sidewinder, Lee Morgan, that sort of thing.
all that, yeah.
You know, so that was an extraordinary time in
It
music.
was. And speaking of that, I remember that one of the albums we had home was Thelonious Monk's Brilliant Corners. That was the first time I heard Monk, and I went, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So going there, and of course, Kwame and Lambe and their friends, they had a Jazz Art Society group.
Right.
And that met in the basement, the same basement of the house in the Bronx, and they would plan jazz concerts, which were mostly at the Club 845. This is before the Naturally shows and all that stuff. This is early. And so I'm underage, I'm a young teenager. You sit in that corner and you can't have anything to drink, but you can listen.
Yeah, Coca-Cola with the maraschino cherry.
So I heard Betty Carter,
Wow,
George Brath.
bebop. Wow.
I mean, so many great artists I heard back then. And this kind of music, it sticks with you. And so over the years, you go like, wow, I remember that sound. I remember that sound. And now I'm getting to shoot that sound.
Right. Because was it commonplace for people as young as you and your brothers were to gravitate toward this type of music at that time?
At that time, jazz was the hip thing.
Wow.
So people would go to the Village and places where a lot of clubs and go to listen to jazz. It was very, very important. It was the thing because apart from what's called R&B, there wasn't that much else going on. And jazz was where everybody wanted to be.
Right. The moniker R&B came much later in crossover. It started off race music and then soul music, and you know.
As a matter of fact, I have a record in which Ray Charles album, vinyl, and which he refers to as rock and roll, and that predates the term rock and roll that's used today, but. That's where it came out.
Disney used to talk about Ray Charles. He said nobody could play slower than Ray Charles. He said, you know, playing fast was not that hard. You know, for somebody like this. He said, but Ray Charles he'd play a note and you'd go eat lunch and come back and same note. But one of the things about jazz is that's so extraordinary. Is that it is both cerebral and emotional.
Yes, it is.
And it's sophisticated, yet down to earth. You know.
Right.
So it's like this oxymoron on a lot of levels that most people, if you just pitch the concept, they'd say it was impossible. But then when you hear it, it's like
Makes all the sense in the
it
world.
makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And jazz musicians are always trying to come up with new sounds and new areas to explore.
Right.
And sometimes they lose even me. I understand that, but
Right.
you know, it's always interesting to see the creative development of an idea.
Right, 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 right. They almost take life unexpectedly. You putz around, and you hear something, and then you keep playing, and then all of a sudden something is born. That's the same thing with your photography. When I alluded to the fact that you come from the darkroom era, I would see, now I shoot digital, like I say, I can shoot 100 pictures and throw away 99 and I'm a genius. And I look at some of the works of Gordon Parks and I'm sitting there going, how the heck did he do that?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the same way I look at your work. It's
Well,
like,
thank you. Yeah. Well, what happened is, first of all, film was more expensive, so you had to be more careful. And when you learn the craft, you really learn the craft. What made that interesting was that when digital came around, I had the foundation of film, which means that when I'm looking at a scene, I can think
Right.
multiple f-stops.
Right.
I can think, I can predict what was going to happen if I
Right.
change this or that around on the
Right.
fly. And so when I'm shooting, I have the advantage of knowing those things ahead of time, rather than shoot, look like that.
Right, right,
So
right.
that gives me the opportunity to shoot more things. To concentrate on capturing the moment when I'm shooting things, rather than I got to look at the camera to see what's going on, because I know what's going on.
Right, right, right. Now, you just used a phrase that is very, very vital and it goes completely over a lot of people's heads. It's capture the moment. There is a place beyond technology, beyond composition, that is pure art. It's the ability. Well, it's the ability to see. It's perspective. It's the ability to see the perfect moment, the perfect angle, to recognize beauty and capture the beauty. You can learn composition. You can get good at operating a specific technology, but the ability to capture an extraordinary moment is an art, and that's not so teachable. And you have that gift. It's the gift that really pulls me in.
Let me go back. My father was a painter.
Okay.
My brother's an artist.
Right, right.
So art's been running in the family. So when you're looking at things, you're looking at it from an artistic point of view. And with the photography, my attempt is to capture that moment, to see the expression, the energy coming. The guys kept reaching for a note. And if I'm successful, I hope that when you see the picture, you'll say, I can almost hear the note.
Excellent. Well, that's a good segue, because we've been promising promising that we were going to show some of this stuff. This is like a foreplay thing, and I've been giving my crew back there an ample opportunity to set things up. So I'm stalling for time because they probably have their hands full, just like focusing on my face. But if you guys have bingo. Now you can see the monitor right there.
This is a photograph of the great Aaron Deal, who is an extraordinary piano player. He's a young guy, and Scott Joplin, Art Tatum. I mean, he flawlessly, unbelievable. His own interpretation, but he is like, wow. Roll the next one.
That's a good shot.
Yeah.
Ow.
Okay. Antoinette Montague, a very fine jazz and blues singer, and she was singing at the Marcus Garvey Park. This is a photo collage. I call it Jazz Over New York.
It's collage.
Yeah, yeah.
It's gorgeous, man.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Sharonette Reid, singing at the Dwyer Cultural Center. great singer. She's also a teacher.
Now,
And this is Danny Mixon.
now, this is not just a picture of someone playing the piano. This is actually capturing a moment. This
Oh
is,
yeah, he's
you know,
he's
and this is
concentrating.
what I mean by
There's a deep concentration there, and that's what I hope you will see.
right.
And here he is again. Again, you can see the concentration.
Right, right. You can see the concentration. You can see the eyes. You can see inside the mind and the soul. You know, and you capture that.
Thank
You know,
you.
and that's what I mean by that's the part of it that you can't actually teach. Really, you either have it or you don't. You either look at that. That's extraordinary. Talk about that.
Eric Reed. Eric Reed is an extraordinary bebop and post-bop jazz pianist. This man started playing the piano at 2.
Oh, say that again.
He started playing. He's a child prodigy who started playing the piano at 2, and he is amazing. And this is Hiromi, a Japanese American. I think she's Japanese piano player, solo piano, extremely creative. This is at Newport, where she played an hour solo piano.
Wow.
Solo piano, and it was extraordinary. People just
Stay
cheered.
on that for a minute.
People stood and cheered when she finished. She was amazing.
Now, I know some Japanese jazz musicians. Man, they know more about black culture and than black people in America. I mean, they know more about
True.
Yeah, especially jazz. It's all throughout Europe. You know, cultures know more about our cultures, respect our culture more than we do.
We
and I'm not sure
sometimes
how
don't focus on what we own and what we have, and we let it slip through our fingers. We should be at all times
right.
invested in what we own.
Right.
What is our
We
music?
really should. We really should.
Jimmy Owens,
Woo.
NEA jazz master. He was playing at Fordham University just last month. They had commissioned him to write something called the Bronx Suite. And this is just a picture of Jimmy there, but the front line for that band was out of sight. They had Wycliffe
look
Gordon
at that.
and all kinds of people. This is a great bass player. He's the bass player for Valerie Capers. His name is Johnson. This is Nyoka Workman. This is Reggie Workman's daughter.
Wow!
She plays cello. She's a composer.
Legacy.
She has a band
Workman's
called
daughter.
the Fiery String Sisters, and she is on the case.
That's nice, man. That's really nice.
This is Lyle Atkinson, who is often performs with Danny Mixon, who we saw before. And the man, he just owns the bass, man. He's on.
It almost looks like they were waiting for you to to pull the trigger.
I don't just shoot jazz. I was at a parade and I just wanted to bring this guy out, and so I manipulated the picture.
Yeah, you're
to
bad
bring
with
this
the
guy out.
post at it too.
I got to post it. But back to the jazz. Jay Hogarth, just swinging, and this. If you get in there, you would see.
Yeah, he got the
expression.
basketball face, like when you're throwing down the.
He's thinking.
Yeah,
He is thinking and creating
yeah.
at the same time. Jimmy Heath, the great Jimmy Heath.
Wow. Wow.
This young lady plays with an African
right, the Gore.
band, and they were up in Peekskill. The city of Peekskill just shut down the streets in the summer of the year, 2 years ago, I think it was, and they had a great
That's
outdoor jazz
trickier to
party.
play than most people would think, because
She's
there's a
good.
couple of percussion elements that are interacting that,
Yeah.
when you're really a master at it, you can really like.
And there she is singing, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is just so
I thought I
beautiful.
captured the moment there. She was really on it.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Now this.
Okay. She plays viola. This is Salim Washington's wife. It's going to escape me now. Myers, her name's. And she is a great musician herself.
Look at the soul in the face. You can,
She's feeling
you
it.
can
She's
just
feeling it.
see the emotion. You could see, And that's what I mean about art. That's really what I expect to find in an artist. When it's all over, I want your soul bleeding in my hand. And you can see it there. Look
Steve
at this.
Toure, master trombonist, and also plays seashells.
Wow. Wow.
And seashells and stuff. And I was at a concert. He was playing a shell. It was like he was getting so many notes out. You can do that. You know, it was unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah, you got to hear him.
Right.
And this is Salim Washington, flutist and saxophone player. He is Dr. Salim Washington, PhD, Harvard University of Music.
Yeah.
He is really good.
Yeah.
Glenda Davison. And this is a friend of mine in Westchester decided she wanted to have jazz in her home, and this is from the first concert.
Nice.
And so she opened her house up, and they sort of passed the hat.
Right.
And
right.
this was Glenda Davenport. This is once again Eric Reed. He was performing at PJazz Jazz Society in Mount Vernon. I'm a member of that organization. I'm vice president, and he was. This is one of the concerts we gave. We have been doing concerts for over 30 years. This is my picture of the Atlas, and it's another collage. The Atlas in Rockefeller Center. Another collage. Another collage.
No, what is that?
That's the Martin Luther King
That's
statue
what I thought,
monument,
yeah.
and I had some singers from a Martin Luther King day in New York.
Oh, that's gorgeous,
and
man.
I blended two pictures together so that you could sort of get the joy of it. And this is my most famous photograph.
It has to be.
Muslim girls jumping over. This thing's been around the
exquisite.
world several times and stuff, and I just love it. And so far, I'm very lucky with it.
Yeah, when I saw it, my eyes lit up. It makes you smile to see it because we are us, you know, and it's just perfect. It's just perfect. Yeah, it was like seeing that last thing with the Muslim girls jumping double dutch. It's almost like, you know, clicking my little ruby slippers and going home.
Yes.
One of the things, and we're gonna open up the phones in a little while, and people can present you with some questions. But one of the things that I noticed about your work is that it hits you on so many levels.
Thank you.
Obviously, you have to appreciate the extraordinary concentration and musicianship of your jazz musicians. But what a lot of people may or may not notice is the fact that there is a level of sophistication and pride in there that we seem to have segued out of as the years have gone by. You know, I mean, they are well dressed, they're well educated, they are obviously proud of their culture, their music, because they play the music and the culture that that we brought to this country, to the world, It concerns me on a couple of levels that we seem to be ashamed of our Africanism more than ever before, even though we have more opportunity. Well, you give me your take on it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
It depends on who you talk to. I think there are a lot of young people who are concerned and educating themselves. Maybe not enough. I think too many are caught up in the hip hop world, which is, to my way of thinking, a little too much about the now. They don't go back in history. When hip hop and rap and stuff started, it was rather political, and it was saying something. It was an extraordinary statement. And I don't hear that anymore. But since I focus my attention on jazz, I don't. I can't say I surveyed the whole area.
You said something that I that's probably very, very valid, and I should have considered it more myself. But a lot of what we see is not all that there is. A lot of what we see is what is presented for us to see.
That is correct.
By others who capitalize off of both our culture on the one hand and our dysfunctions on the other. You know, and we see things that are presented by very powerful organizations, very powerful corporations. Meant to exploit us, and we believe that that's all that we are, and it becomes self-fulfilling.
Well, the tendency to think in terms of, well, what is presented is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Mm-hmm. And we have to understand that things that are being presented to us, the people who are doing the presenting, they may have an ulterior motive, mm-hmm. or at least a point of view that may be contrary to ours.
Right.
It could be valid, but as long as it's contrary to ours, then the question comes up, well, when does my point of view come out? When do I get a chance to say to as big an audience as a TV station has, for example, mm-hmm. or a radio station, or somebody who broadcasts or media, when do I get a chance to tell my story?
Right.
We've got to learn to tell our story, because if we don't tell our story, no one else will.
Right.
You know,
right.
You get points of view, you get challenges, and the other guy can grab the mic and the spotlight and say, this is what it is. And if you can't counter that, mm-hmm. that goes out as if that is the truth. Mm-hmm. So we have to be very careful that to examine the things we see and the things we hear and things that are being presented to us. Mm-hmm. So
I asked you this before, and I'll ask you again. The upsides and the challenges of being the baby brother, considerably younger than the other
hey,
two
look,
brothers.
Those guys taught me algebra.
Extraordinary.
They taught me algebra and a lot of things. So it was good. It was good being the young brother.
But I know it couldn't be all upside, because you got to, like, it means that you're running behind two cats who run real fast.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
I mean, and not that you've run the race and you've won the belt a couple of times yourself. It all seems like pie, but as a kid, sometimes I know you had to be like,
yeah, and keeping up and catching up and other things too. Like since I was a little one, I got left to do the chores.
Yeah, all right.
So,
I like that.
So that's part of it too.
Okay, I think we got a call. I didn't even know that was up there.
Oh, okay.
But if when you get a chance, put the caller through and let them talk to John. Hi, how you doing, caller?
Yes, hello, Nat. How are you?
Oh, how you doing, brother?
Yes, this is Stefan Omar calling from the Big Mango here in Harlem.
Excellent.
And I'm intrigued by this man's work, especially when he mentions jazz, because that's one of my favorite music, if not my favorite music, and that's our gift,
right.
America's gift to the world, along
right.
with gospel. I want to ask your guest this question. I have a relative, his name is Joe Maynard, and he did a lot of work with jazz musicians, especially the late Miles Davis. And Joe, he's living in Sin City right now, but he did a lot of work, like I said, with the late Miles Davis, and I have some of his, mainly in black and white. He didn't deal with color. And also Mel Wright. I want to know if he knows of these two individuals, these two photographers.
I do know Mel.
Okay, well, Mel and I went to junior high school together. We graduated Frederick Douglass.
Mel's a good friend.
Okay, and I met Mel years ago when he was in Guyana, and he was doing some work down in Guyana, filming the late Fort Burnham. And at the time, I was living in Antigua, and we were doing some work down in Guyana. So what I want to know is, how would you? I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but
put him on the spot. He's on the spot.
How would you compare your work with that of Joe and Mel Wright? I'll hang up and listen to your response. And once again, Nat, you know my signature by now, and I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Keep the faith, my brother.
I love you too, brother. Thank you.
Well, actually, I feel we do different things. I think my concentration has been more on the jazz performance during concert. Mel, I think, does more a broader range of things than I do, and that's interesting. I like his work, and he likes mine, but I don't think we're trying to outdo one another in any area. We just do different things.
Yeah, yeah. I think that gifted people, consciously or unconsciously, have a tendency to push each other. You know, I mean, I'm doing my thing, and then I see someone like you doing your thing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, hey, boy, you're gonna have to up your, you
Yeah,
you
yeah.
gonna have to up your game.
It keeps you on your
Right,
toes.
right. So it's not a competition in that, you know. But it is, you know,
It's an inspiration. You know,
right?
hey,
An inspiration.
If he
is the
could do
word.
that, what can I do with my stuff? You know?
Right.
But I just want to go back a second. We've been talking about jazz. But as I was coming up, I was shooting rock and roll with everybody else. So I photographed. I did Sly Stone and all those guys of Chambers Brothers and Jimi Hendrix, and I photographed all those guys too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I came forward and evolved into jazz photographer later. More so after I got into into digital. But along the way, I'd photograph all those guys.
Well, when you're talking Sly Stone and Jimi Hendrix, again, that's consistent with your love of jazz, because these are extraordinary musicians. The format that they're using is a little different from jazz. You know, or at least different from bebop. You know. But Louis Armstrong is different. You know, St. Louis Blues is different. Chick Webb is different. You know, swing is different. But they are extraordinary, gifted musicians who come from a place of culture and soul. So if you know, are drawn to beauty and culture, you have to appreciate a Sly Stone and certainly a Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is a blues man. I know white folks got y'all convinced that he was something else.
That is so funny, because I remember going to the Madison Square Garden where Jimi Hendrix played on a rotating stage. And it was an interesting moment because he opened, I think he played 6 blues tunes in a row to start. And the audience got restless because they wanted to hear all those other things, Blue Haze,
Purple Haze,
and all that other stuff. And they didn't get it.
Voodoo Man, Voodoo Child.
They didn't get it. They didn't get it. They didn't understand. But he was a very nice. He was a very good blues musician. He really was.
Blues takes a minute to get, because especially when you think of yourselves as somewhat pseudo-sophisticated, you know. There's a very down and dirty component. I mean, you've got to be comfortable enough to go inside yourself enough to actually touch upon the humanity that you don't want to display to everyone else in your superficial existence.
Yeah.
You know. It took me a while. It took me a while to admit to the world how much I loved Louis Armstrong, you know, especially coming up in the 60s, because we tend to stereotype people who we really should really be proud of when we look at what they came through, they are actually holding our culture on their shoulders, you know.
That's true.
And the payment they got was you know, now you're growing up in these eras, and you're developing in these eras. How did you see different people in different art forms? You know, specifically a Louis Armstrong or a Sammy Davis Jr. You know.
Well, I think that I was guilty of politicizing them more and thinking their politics or than their music. But I have them both in my music collections.
You can't help it. Louis was
so,
bad. Louis
so,
was nice. Right.
And some things he did with the Hot Five back in the 20s
Oh
was
yeah!
amazing
Oh
work. You know?
yeah!
So,
Oh yeah!
hey.
Yeah. Hampton started out as a drummer with the original Hot Five.
Okay.
Lionel Hampton.
I didn't know that. That's
right,
great. Yeah.
and he started out as the drummer, and then he moved on to the
Vibes.
vibes and whatnot. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, extraordinary. And they really.
But getting back to what you're saying, what happens is the mass media can divert your attention away from important things.
Right.
So while you are,
Right.
instead of saying Louis Armstrong is a great musician,
Right.
period,
Right.
you get caught up in this other
Right.
stuff, and then what happens is you stop appreciating
Right.
Louis Armstrong,
Right.
and that's not good.
Right. Same thing with Sammy. They talk about how talented Sammy was, and but Sammy could out-sing all of those cats. I mean, Sammy's voice was just like so powerful, so perfect. That.
And he could do everything they could do.
Right. But no, Sammy sang Frank under the table. And Frank was good. He had a nice voice, but when you like play them back to back,
No comparison.
there's no comparison. There's really no comparison. Your future, what does it look like? What's your plans in the future?
Well, more photography, of course.
Right.
But I may branch out into different areas of photography. More photo montage, maybe. But the idea will be always to make the picture say something special. I'm also involved with jazz promotion, so maybe I'll dabble more in that area of doing some more jazz promotion. And I'm looking forward to the upcoming Summer Breeze concert series in Mount Vernon, where I'm helping to put that together for them.
Right.
And I'm looking at a couple of the things that may bear fruit, and I think they'll be extraordinary again.
Right. When I was looking at your montage work, it suddenly occurred to me how well you would do commercially in this young pop culture.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you have a flair for new and really vivid detail that goes well in commercial art, and if you're selling soup or you're selling songs, any plans if the opportunity presented itself to do a Lady Gaga
Shoot?
shoot?
I take a crack at it.
Good.
I take a crack at it.
Good.
But I think that a greater interest would be I'd like to shoot CD covers.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some of the things that are out there now, and I think that some of it could be done differently.
Yeah. Maybe not a Lady Gaga, but certainly like a Kanye West, who has a proclivity toward the dramatic, the bold and the dramatic.
That could be interesting.
That could be very, very interesting. So Kanye, if you're listening, sometimes I do this to you, but I give you your credit. You can be quite provocative, and so can this brother here. This would be an extraordinary combination.
Talk.
Yeah, we can talk. The Schomburg has now that it's under new management, and you have a bold young man running the Schomburg and Khalil Gibran Muhammad. Possibly you have, because you have so much stuff that is really like historic, and they already have your brother there. It would be interesting to see two Brathwaites
we'll have to see.
in one
That'd
building.
be nice. We've been thinking about a Brathwaite show of not just myself and Kwame's work, but other members of the family who are also artists put it together a show.
Wow.
And that would be
Wow.
That would be very interesting.
That would be devastating.
I think
That would be
you'll love to see that,
devastating.
and we're just trying to get people to commit to it.
Good, good, good. That sounds like an extraordinary idea. I would love to see that. I think a lot of people would love to see that. How many of you every time I see the name Brathwaite and there's a black face attached to it, I think it's, you know, it's one of y'all.
No, but
Because they all seem so darn smart.
thank you.
So annoyingly smart.
Well, there's just me, Elambe, and Kwame, the three brothers.
How many children and grandchildren you guys got?
I have one son. Elambe has 6 kids. They're all adults, and Kwame has 2, and grandchildren. You know, and we're seeing.
They're annoyingly smart too. Sinkay was annoyingly smart. You know.
And his brother is a whiz at bioinformatics.
Yeah, my grandkids are annoyingly smart. I love them, you know, but it's like, you know.
Yeah, I think that
And
family
I'm happy they're, as opposed to like disappointingly silly, you know,
I think
goofy.
that our family does really have an appreciation of education overall. So we appreciate education and what it can open up for you, and so we can it becomes a better tool. You know, it's like if you have the right tools, you have the freedom to do what you want.
Right.
And so education is the right tool to give you the ability to do the things you would like to do.
Right. And I don't think you, if I'm not mistaken, you probably don't harp on it. It's almost symbiotic. It's a second-hand approach to learning where, you know, it's the way you interact with your children, your grandchildren, your immediate surroundings that encourage them to do the same thing as opposed to trying to beat it into them.
True. A lot of our family, and my wife's family, my wife's cousin just got a PhD in biology. We got people who are doing these things, and it's good to see and all, but I don't know what it is about us, but I know that my parents really treasured education. And they didn't get a chance to go as far as they wanted to go in school. But interestingly enough, although my father didn't have that much formal education, the way they were taught in Barbados, you had to be literate, you had to know Shakespeare. And my father could quote you and recite Shakespeare. He knew it cold.
And Shakespeare is rough.
Yes.
You know, because
and understood it. Not that
that's why it's rough.
Not just reading words.
Well, no. Reading words is not rough.
And as I said before, my uncle wrote poetry. My uncle wrote all kinds of poetry. Blank verse, iambic pentameter, sonnets, the whole. He just did that. So you can cultivate your mind. You can train yourself to do all kinds of things. You just don't start at a little place and stop there. You start a little place and go, well, okay, I got this now. What about if I add this? And then you can do many things. But that's what education gives you the freedom to do things.
You mentioned, I won't even say formal education, but brick and mortar education as opposed to learning. It seems that in our modern society, even a brick and mortar education does not really prepare you for learning, and we live in a time and a space where your ability to learn and relearn and relearn and relearn and relearn is paramount to survival.
Yeah. The problem is, I think, is that what has happened is that we have gotten to a point where education is used. Get an education to get a job. But the purpose of education is not to get a job, but to be educated. Because if you're educated, you can do many things. not to get an education to work for
Right.
this or that company,
Right, right,
because
Right.
this or that company may have a need for
Right.
your degree, but
Right.
they may change course and not need that degree anymore.
right, right.
But you need to educate yourself so that no matter what the future holds,
Correct.
you are poised to do what
Correct.
you need to do.
Correct.
And unfortunately, there's less in the liberal arts today.
Right.
What you see instead is, well, you need to be an accountant, so just take these courses. You need to be this, take these courses. But there's no breadth to it. There's no greater understanding, no understanding of your relationship to the rest of the world. And so therefore, people just learn. They get learning in a subject, but they don't know. They're not
And in
educated.
today's world, that's not even valid. Education to get a job has not been relevant since Jimmy Carter was the president.
Okay.
In today's world, with the advent of the computer, with the advent of different businesses becoming other businesses and growing into other things, it is essential that you be able to re-educate. You know, I got a 2-year plan on my telephone, and before the year was up, the technology had jumped 4 times.
Yes.
You know, and morphed into something completely different from the state-of-the-art thing that I thought I was buying a year ago. You know?
Yes.
There are jobs and positions that no longer exist at all. You know, and to remove anything that makes your mind faster, smarter, better, seems to be a suicide solution. With that, I will pose a question that is more near and dear to your heart.
Okay.
The removal of art in the schools, it has been almost completely thrown in the garbage, at least in New York City. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? We always talk
That's
about
a terrible thing.
Yeah, okay, good.
That's a terrible thing because art has the way of letting people stretch their mind to think different thoughts. And what happens is, in an economic downturn, the first thing they want to get rid of is the arts because they think they're extra.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not. What it is, it helps
Ancillary.
people to grow and to think beyond the books.
Right.
Now, it may be that they feel that, look, we don't really want you doing all that thinking and questioning, so
nice.
maybe that's part of it. But for the most part, my thinking is that when they kill the arts, they stop people from thinking new and different thoughts.
Right.
You know, you sort of follow the script.
Right.
And that's not good because when we go beyond the script of it, that's when we start to see and discover and create new things.
So, and I tend to kind of look at it from your second point, you know, a lot. That the stripping of the arts programs in schools is an act of aggression, not simply, you know, a thoughtless, mindless, you know, reasoned approach. And if the stripping of the arts is indeed an act of aggression, in other words, if it is an attempt to keep you from reaching your fullest potential, then it seems to me that it is incumbent upon us to get back to basics and do what your family has done, you know, and get back to black.
Read. I finished a book this morning before I had breakfast. Okay?
Nice, nice.
Keep on reading.
Nice.
me
Yeah, I think
too.
we're running out of time. I don't know what's going on, but we only got a couple of minutes left. Give us some wisdom going out. How do we get back to who we are? Because we have always been extraordinary, always been forward thinking, always been quite progressive, long before they even came up with this catchphrase.
Well, I think that we should all read, broaden our background. Don't read in your discipline alone. Read outside your discipline to learn more. Broaden your background. Another thing might be is to think in terms of what kind of education would I create for myself if I was solely in charge of my own education, which you are, you know, what would I need to learn? What would I want to learn? What would I want to be expert at if I'm going to be in charge of my education? And where would that take me? So that's a thing. I want to be the best in photography. But after that, there are other things, I guess, that I'll be looking at. But we just need to think about it and think ahead. Think that, okay, if I'm doing this well, what next should I do? That may not be a completely different area, but maybe I can broaden some of what I'm doing to do that well and add breadth to it.
Excellent. We're about to close up here. If you guys are able to, you could put John Brathwaite's photography on a slideshow, and you could run us out with the slideshow, play my closing theme. We'll see you next week on 30 Frames a Second. I want to thank you so much for joining myself and the incomparable John Brathwaite.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, man. Brother, you make me look good. See you next week.